mother, wife,
Air Force veteran,
gun rights advocate.
This is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Oh, we have so much going on here. Right now, we're welcoming back to the show Adam Mangana. He is education innovator and CEO of Optima Ed. Adam, welcome.
Stacy, thank you so much for having me. You have an incredible show, and I'm honored to be with you this evening.
Well, thank you so much. I love Optima Ed. We love Erica Donalds and her work, and I'm so glad that you are with her there, continuing the legacy of excellence in education freedom. And you're actually joining us tonight on something very important. It's technology and virtual reality and their role in education. Talk to us about what you found.
Well, you're nice to say that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? We're at a really interesting crossroads right now, and I'm reminded of a story from 200 years ago of the Luddites, and the Luddites were, of course, very skilled workers that were displaced by factory owners. And we're at this really interesting crossroads with spatial computing, AI, immersive computing now, where, folks are concerned about the future and what that means for their children. And we have these two innovations. We have AI and we have educational savings accounts. And these innovations at the same time are transforming people's access. And Optima is trying to marry this kind of 21st century technology with first century wisdom and putting the power in the hands of families to make decisions around how they want to educate their children with best-in-class technology, but time-tested content that we've known that worked for 5,000 years. So we're very kind of contrarian in that way. We're not trying to use technology for technology's sake, but we're trying to leverage the very best in technology to make sure that every child can have access to the American dream.
So the leveraging of technology, which I'm here for at 110%, but there are now studies out that show that if you're using technology as the primary mode of educating children, that's not actually the successful play. The successful play is to use technology as an assist, but to use the traditional methods as the primary. So how are you at Optima Ed? How are you kind of balancing the need to have kids be technologically proficient, but then also, that kind of very real tactile experience of holding books, learning from people, as opposed to just shunting everything off to technology?
Well, that's exactly the right framework, Stacy. It's like the Luddites asked the right question, but they chose the wrong fight. Every parent tonight should be asking the right question about technology. It's not technology itself that is good or bad, but it's who does it serve? If the answer isn't your child, your family should walk away immediately, just like the point you're making. And what we do at Optima is we're rooted in classical content. Now, we deliver that instead of on Zoom and the checkerboard of faces that every one of us knows instinctively was engineered as a conference call. We deliver that in the metaverse. So we want to be able to highlight the Socratic method as the actual way of extending thinking, right? Our best teachers, Jesus, Socrates, they walked next to us and they asked questions to extend our thinking. You can't do that in Zoom, but you can do that in the metaverse. So again, not technology for technology's sake, but who are we serving? And it should be the families and the students. And how are we doing that? That's with time-tested content that we know has worked for thousands of years.
Okay, so what does that look like for parents and for those who are, like, let's say they're considering, maybe it's Optima Ed, they're considering some other alternative learning, which that's the future right now. Customized learning that's built for your child is actually the future. Think of how customized your coffee is, how customized your vehicle is, how customized everything in your life. Even when you're ordering on Amazon, you're customizing when you're getting it delivered. One day, this afternoon, tomorrow morning. They give you all these options on when you can have a delivery. And there are also customizations available on the products on Amazon. So that customization, the kind of demand for it, the expectation of it is so strong. And why not have that in education? I'm surprised it's taken us this long to kind of get there.
Amen. You're exactly right. Hyper-personalization is the name of the game. And every parent, I believe, over the next 5 years will be able to become the CEO of their own child's education. And that's because of the good work that my great friend Erica is doing on the policy front, unlocking some of this, some of the kind of chains of the bureaucracy that have existed. And now, right, parents are able to access, new innovations around funding. Educational savings accounts is the prime example, and universal education savings accounts in this last big, beautiful bill have a pathway to a national adoption in 2027, which means not only can parents hyper-personalize their child's education, but they, in many cases, will have $10,000 to be able to have their voices heard in a marketplace. So they can demand the kinds of tools, the kinds of content, the kinds of tech-enabled services that will allow each of their individual children's needs to be met.
And I hate to say it, but it's the truth. People want their kids to get a good education, and they don't want to feel like they have to, basically go back to school and get a PhD themselves to see it happen.
Amen. Amen. It's really important because, parents have PhDs in their own children, but they don't need to become subject matter experts. And so solutions like Optima can allow for access across zip codes in ways we haven't. It used to be that, where your parent could afford to pay real estate taxes is, kind of drove what kind of outcome and what kind of access you had. And that's just, for me, an un-American idea. We want a future where every child has access to the American dream, the greatest country that's ever been created. And we imagine that empowering the parents and not kind of positioning them to have to be in a particular geography to be able to get a particular, access is going to be really important. The other thing I think that's critical is what we learned from COVID is there has been a huge disparity in access to content. I would argue we've had a curriculum crisis. So many of our students aren't even reading full novels. They're not learning proper grammar. They're not having access to phonics. They're not developing the mechanics in cursive writing. We really want to be able to scale some of these things that we know work, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. And one of the ways to do that is to be able to deliver that through these platforms that allows parents for the dollars to follow the parents, because now we have market forces that will ultimately incentivize more competition and a higher quality product for the end user.
Oh, absolutely. That is something that is kind of exciting for parents as well, to think about what all they can get available for their children who, previous to this, you've been told, okay, here's your child's, kindergarten through fifth grade. And if there's a problem, they're like, well, you could try homeschooling. And the way it's posed, it's kind of like, well, you could try, doing a voodoo dance around your kid. It's posed as something, you know what I mean? It's posed as something that it's potentially dangerous. I'm sorry to have to recommend that to you, but that's your option. Now people see homeschooling for what it is. It's another viable option that can really yield excellent results. So what else are you recommending to parents right now, especially when you were talking about the possibility of having some additional funding and how things could be different?
I think you're exactly right. There are many homeschool moms listening to your show tonight that have already made kind of the hardest kind of countercultural decision, right, by taking the power back and becoming the CEO of the child's education. That's already courageous. But I would say that the way I see it, it's not your grandmother's homeschool. It's not, that the crowd that's having to do it all themselves. It's a much more hyper-personalized, much more modular delivery, and it's school from home rather than homeschool. And so people are able to pull in all of the resources and the tools because now they have access to these dollars. and they can drive the kind of outcomes that they want. And I think what's really exciting is you're seeing a lot of homeschool families as kind of a an end result of the journey go pro out of high school. They're getting credentials. They're going right into the workforce, and they're avoiding some of the college debt and some of the just complexity, maybe the social complexity and the woke complexity that comes along with, the traditional college trajectory. And they're adding value right away and building incredible self-esteem and wealth for themselves coming right out of high school. That doesn't mean, if you want to go to college, you can't go to college. We want to make choices that give families more choice, right? That's the critical thing. And to your point, there have been folks who have kind of said, if you start down this path, this is the only path. And I think what's exciting now with the policy work and the courage coming from the current administration is we have now, got rid of some of those, the chains of the Department of Education, and now the money is flowing from a very centralized system to now a decentralized system where states and families can make the best choices for their constituencies and their children.
I love it. I love it. So if you're listening and you're thinking, Optima Ed, that sounds interesting. Well, guess what? It's optimaxr.ai. That's the website, optimaxr.ai. You can go there. You can find out more information. This could be something that could be very helpful for you in your journey. I love to do, a little bit of like, let me look at this, let me look at that. You kind of just cast your eyes around and say, what's out there? And then you can make a decision about, especially with it being this time of year. This is a time of year where if you're enrolling in your kid in school, you're actually ending up, you're making your first payments, you're, kind of rounding out the paperwork battle. So go ahead and take that leap. This is the time of year to do it if you're thinking about something for the fall. Maybe you keep your kids where they are. Maybe they're happy where they are. Or maybe you say, you know what? I think I might make a change. And if you do, in any case, it's your decision as their parent. I want to stress
Amen.
that. So it's a real great opportunity. I love when experts that I can know and trust, that's the thing. There are a lot of experts out there, but how many of them can you say you've heard? Just Erica's been on the show so many times talking about her passion, the reason why she started Optima Ed, what she's been able to do with it. It's been a real success story. So it's optimaxr.ai. And we are so excited about what you guys are doing, Adam. Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness, Stacy, you have an incredible show. Thank you for your leadership. And for your listeners in Texas, the application for the new ESA closes on March 17th. So let's try to get those folks, able to access those ESA dollars. And if you'd like to see our online academy in Texas, it's www.optimaacademy.online, and you can check that out in Texas as well. So thank you so much, Stacy. You are absolutely incredible, and your leadership has been inspiring.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And we'll talk to you again soon, Adam.